For the second assessment for level design, we were tasked with creating a level for an adventure-style game that was similar to the Uncharted series developed by Naughty Dog Games. We began the process by looking at similar style games, specifically Uncharted 3 and the Batman Arkham series. We chose these games as our initial research and inspiration due to their high rating and popularity amongst the gaming community. Upon deciding our theme, we then built a mood board of images to help with inspiration and help start thinking about how we would lay out the level. The theme for this level was going to be a modern city setting with a tower that was under siege by a private army. When creating the mood board, we decided to focus on varying portrayals of the fictional location of Gotham City. This is the setting of the Batman games, and we chose this as inspiration as it is a fictional location which allows us creative freedom while still focusing on looking at the modern urban city architecture and layout. After developing the mood board, we started to focus on coming up with plans for the level to get a good idea of what we wanted to create. We began by making a few sketches with notes indicating of what we wanted to happen at different areas of the level. These sketches were then used to create the first iteration of the level. The first iteration was more bare bones than the later iteration due to using it as a basis, for then evolving it to fit feedback and improve player experience. The scale of the second iteration was greatly decreased as common feedback was that it was too open in its layout, which made parts of it tedious and not interesting. The first section of the level is a rooftop platforming section. In the later iteration, it was given an increase in difficulty as the platforming was too simple to start. I also decided to use very little lighting in the second iteration to almost create a leap of faith at the beginning, as the story of the transition between the two levels is that the player is being hunted by the enemies, so they had to make a quick escape and they took a leap of faith out of the building. The second area of the level is a hospital, where the player needs to grab some meds to heal. The level was given patrolling enemies in the later iteration, as in the first iteration it was very bare and I was just trying to test how to grab players' attention using lighting. Unfortunately, the first iteration did not work out, so I changed it to have more tension with the enemies and changed it to use signs to guide the player rather than a bit of lighting, as the lighting in the first iteration was too subtle. The third area of the level is the combat section in the street outside the hospital. The difference between the first and second iteration is more minor than the other sections of the level, as this section had positive feedback coming from it, so I just added some more cover options and tweaked the lighting to help guide the player in the right direction. After the combat section, the player goes through a small platforming section in the alleyway behind the buildings. In this section I modified it slightly to be shorter in the second iteration, and I tweaked the lighting so that it was more guiding to the player so that it was clearer where they had to go, as that was an issue with the first iteration. Once you exit the alley, you are greeted by a truck which in the back has a bunch of weapons and ammo inside it, as well as healing pickups to repair any damage taken in the fight before. It was decided that there would be plenty of pickups here, as there is a large combat section at the end of the level and the player should be plenty equipped for that section so that it isn't too difficult. At the end of the level, the player has to fight their way across the bridge. In the first iteration of this, the bridge was much larger and the cover environment was very repetitive, so when it came to making the second version, I chose to try and tell a sort of story of something happening on the bridge through placement of the vehicles. This created a more interesting environment for the player to fight through and created an ending to the level that made more sense than just a bunch of traffic on the bridge. Overall, in the second iteration, I believe I've managed to capture the story and experience that I wanted the player to have when playing through the level.